It, of course, is one of a president's gravest obligations, families of fallen service members. But for President Trump, that sober responsibility was the source of an apparent swipe at his predecessors. Defending his delay in responding to recent Army Green Beret deaths in Niger, President Trump deflected before we pressed him on it. On the steps of the Rose Garden, President Trump responding to questions about why he had not commented yet on the deaths of 4 U.S. soldiers in Niger nearly 2 weeks ago.
I actually wrote letters individually to the soldiers we're talking about, and they're going to be going out.
The president saying he would call the families this week, adding this claim that his predecessors did not call families of fallen service members.
If you look at President Obama and other presidents, most of them didn't make calls. A lot of them didn't make calls. I like to call when it's appropriate, when I think I'm able to do it.
NBC News pressing him on that.
Earlier you said that President Obama never called the families of fallen soldiers. How can you make that claim?
I don't know if he did. No.
Well, in fact,
I was told that he didn't often, and a lot of presidents don't. They write letters.
You were told that based on what, Mr. President?
I do. Excuse me, Peter. I do a combination of both. Sometimes it's a very difficult thing to do, but I do a combination of both. President Obama, I think, probably did sometimes, and maybe sometimes he didn't. I don't know. That's what I was told.
The president's assertion igniting a firestorm of criticism. Overnight, former Attorney General Eric Holder tweeting, "Stop the damn lying. You're the president." I went to Dover Air Force Base with 44 and saw him comfort the families of both the fallen military and DEA. President Obama's former deputy chief of staff immediately blasting President Trump on Twitter, tearing into his claim as an expletive lie. A spokesperson for former President George W. Bush says he wrote all the families of the fallen during his presidency and called or met with hundreds, if not thousands. One woman whose brother was killed in Iraq says, quote, "President Bush listened while I screamed at him and then held me as I sobbed." Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders later defending President Trump, saying he wasn't criticizing his predecessors, but, quote, stating a fact, adding, "Individuals claiming former presidents, such as their bosses, called each family of the fallen are mistaken." Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said, like past presidents, President Trump has called, sent a letter, or met with the families of the fallen since taking office. As for those Green Berets killed in Niger, now 13 days ago, I asked the White House again this morning whether the president's letters have now been mailed or calls to those families made, but so far no new update. Matt, Savannah?
A nuclear war could break out any minute. That warning from North Korea's deputy ambassador to the United Nations. He told a UN committee Monday that his country has been subjected to, quote, an extreme and direct nuclear threat from the United States. The deputy ambassador also warned that all of the North American mainland is within their firing range. Things have been more than tense between the U.S. and North Korea thanks to increasingly tough UN sanctions and the war of rhetoric between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, trading insults like Rocket Man and mentally deranged. The president has ruled out talks with Pyongyang, but Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said just a few days ago that diplomacy will continue until the first bomb drops. At a meeting with Japanese officials in Tokyo, Deputy Secretary of State John Sullivan also expressed hope for diplomacy while acknowledging it might not work.
We must, however, with our allies in Japan and South Korea and elsewhere, to be prepared for the worst should diplomacy fail.
Vice President Mike Pence did his part to assure Japanese representatives that the U.S. is ready and able to stand up to North Korea.
The United States of America will continue to bring the full range of American power to bear on the regime in Pyongyang, as we hope to achieve through diplomatic and economic means a peaceable solution.
There's another round of saber rattling coming from the U.S. side of this North Korea crisis. The U.S. Navy involved in exercises all this week in the waters off the east and west of the Korean Peninsula, including the USS Michigan nuclear-powered submarine, which can be equipped, we are told, with as many as 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles, and reportedly could have on board a special force team that could take out the North Korean leadership if need be. All told, we're talking about 40 ships from the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet involved, featuring the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan, as well as destroyers, fighter jets, other aircraft, all running maneuvers with the South Korean military. Eric, the North Korean regime has called these exercises a rehearsal for invasion.
As a pretty blunt message to us and to them. And as you just said, they remain defiant. So how has North Korea responded? With more anti-U.S. rhetoric this weekend?
Absolutely. Over the weekend, the propaganda machine of the North Korean regime working overtime. The state news agency of the government of Kim Jong-un branding President Trump a war merchant, a strangler of peace, claiming that by selling or giving weapons to South Korea and Japan, he is creating a hair trigger situation on the Korean peninsula. Of course, the Pyongyang government are responsible for multiple missile launches and nuclear tests. They even went so far, according to our sources on the ground, as dropping anti-President Trump leaflets from balloons sent over from North Korea. Some of the propaganda even landing around the capital of Seoul. That's one reminder, Eric, of how close everything is on that Korean peninsula. And that's a place that President Trump will be coming to in the coming weeks.
Now saying nuclear war could break out at any moment. It's claiming the U.S. is moving the needle toward a nuclear crisis. Quote, unless the hostile policy and the nuclear threat of the U.S. is thoroughly eradicated, we will never put our nuclear weapons and ballistic rockets on the negotiation table under any circumstance. Now, these latest threats, as Vice President Mike Pence says, the U.S. is looking for a peaceful resolution.
To be clear, the United States of America will continue to bring the full range of American power to bear on the regime in Pyongyang, as we hope to achieve through diplomatic and economic means a peaceable solution and the achievement of the long-sought goal of a nuclear-free Korean peninsula.
John Bolton, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Senior Fellow American Enterprise Institute, and a Fox News contributor. And, sir, good morning to you. So the rhetoric's hot. Does it match the facts?
This is propaganda from the North Koreans. They're trying to intimidate those Americans who are capable of being intimidated, and unfortunately there are a large number of them. The threat in the region is North Korea's nuclear weapons program. That's what we've been grappling with unsuccessfully for 25 years. And the idea that somehow we're responsible for it really is ludicrous, except to those who buy that kind of North Korean propaganda.
Now, you used to work at the UN. You know this stuff very well. Apparently, the prepared remarks had that comment. Nuclear war may break out at any moment, but it was not read out loud. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, they're very good at getting what they want out without actually having it on the record that way. So this is the very fact we're talking about. It shows that they're successful. I think what it means for American policy, though, is we've just got to keep our eye on the ball. They are definitely getting close to the capacity to hit targets all over the continental United States. They said the other day, though, they wouldn't negotiate until they already had that capability. So time is running out. It has been running out, and it's landed in the Trump administration's lap. But nobody should be under any illusions that after 25 years and getting this close to the finish line, North Korea is going to be talked out of its nuclear weapons program. That is not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Right. I think the only diplomatic possibility here is with China to put either enough pressure on the regime in North Korea that it collapses, or to acknowledge we need to reunite the two Koreas. Otherwise, the options look a lot grimmer, and I think we have to acknowledge that. Otherwise, look, there's an easy answer here. We can just stop all this and let North Korea get nuclear weapons and live with it. That's what Susan Rice, the national security in the Obama administration, wants to do.
Well, Secretary Kelly last week said it's developing a pretty good nuclear re-entry vehicle, so the program continues to advance, as you point out there. They think we want to take their leader out. Our leader goes there in November. President Trump will visit South Korea. He may go to the DMZ. How significant should we view that trip, sir?
Well, this trip to Asia is very significant in a number of respects. He'll be in Japan, South Korea, then China, then Southeast Asia. I definitely think it's important for the president to go to South Korea. I know he's been there before. I don't know if he's been to the demilitarized zone. It's something that I wish every American could see and confront the North Koreans. But I think this is very important to show them that we are determined, as the president said in his speech to the United Nations a few weeks ago, that as far as North Korea goes, denuclearization is the only way forward, meaning they are not left with nuclear weapons, period.
Thank you, sir. We will talk again about this.